Hi everyone, so this is Stephen Edwards from Chapman Tax Accountants. Many of you might be clients, many of you might not actually be clients, but I've wanted to put this together for our clients and also for the small business community, because obviously these are really testing times, and any support that's available for each of us, and there's that really big sort of community spirit at the moment going on between small businesses and also families and everybody really. I think the everyone's showing their true colours and being supportive of each other, and hopefully this webinar I'm putting together today for you will help, even if it helps in a small way, and it gives you that extra 10% that can help you get you through in your business through these challenging times. Then that's amazing. I don't want to sort of dwell on it and go through too slowly, because I'm sure you've all got lots on your plate. So I want to make it streamlined as possible, but also provide enough information to make it useful. And also I'm making myself available to, firstly, our clients, because we do provide a service to you, but anybody else, any other business owner watching this that needs some advice, I'm more than happy to see how we can help you. So we've called it your business continuity plan, and as I mentioned, it's presented by myself, Stephen Edwards. So I'm the director, I'm a chartered certified accountant, and I run Cheltenham Tax Accountants based in Cheltenham. So we do like to sort of drop in these little nuggets of information and little mindset things, and the Japanese obviously have a lot of the Chinese have a lot of heritage and a lot of legends, and a way of seeing the opportunity in the most challenging of times. So the idea with this one is crisis actually has two characters and two sort of meanings in Chinese related to it. One is it's a time of danger, and the other is it's a time of opportunity. And I'm sure many of us are not looking at the opportunities that are available at the moment. We're all in survival mode, rightly so, for ourselves, for our family, and for our businesses. But it's just to really make you flip that a little bit and have a bit of a pivot, and just think of the other side. Think, when you do come through this, what opportunities might be available, and it's just a way of thinking really. So what I'd like to talk about today is, we just touched about the mindset to a certain degree, any things we can do mentally to sort of help ourselves, because this is unprecedented. And if we get ourselves right, then we're in a better position to help our staff and help our clients, and get our businesses through what's going on at the moment, and also how you can go away, do something that's actionable, it's practical, and it's going to physically help you actually make a difference right now. So that's actually one of the big things I'm looking to do today. Just recap the support that's available to you in terms of the government, what's out there, and sort of business community in general, and also what finance might be available to you, and also how we can potentially help you. And then what I think you should go away and do off the back of this session, and following the webinar, I'm as I mentioned, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have following this. So this is one of the mindsets, and some of you might be familiar with this, but particularly some of our clients, it's one of our core values in Cheltenham Tax Accountants, and I don't want to dwell on it because I know we want to get to something that's useful and actionable right now, but I think it's a really, really important mindset, and it's going to stay with me for the rest of my life. I've learned it in the last couple of years. And it's all about above the line thinking, and the acronym ALLBED helps you sort of remember what above the line is and what below the line is. So above the line, if you're thinking above the line, you're taking ownership, you're taking accountability, you're taking responsibility for your actions, your thoughts, and to some degree the outcomes. I know, again, this is unprecedented. We cannot plan for these sort of things. There's storms, and then there's meteor showers, and I think this is more of a meteor shower than a storm. No one can really have planned for what's happened. But what you can do, there's certain things you can do. So it's basically and I've learned this off someone else recently, actually, where you can write down all of your challenges and all of your problems and all of your main concerns on a piece of paper, and then cross out anything that's not in your control. And what you're left with is things that are in your control, and they're things that you can take ownership for, accountability, responsibility. Some things naturally we cannot control in this situation. It's just trying not to fall into this below the line mentality where we're just blaming other things, we're making excuses, we're denying. It's just kind of being the best version of ourselves in this situation. That's what it's all about. And people with blame tend to say you. It's your fault, not mine. Whereas when you're taking responsibility, you tend to think in the first person, as I. Okay, another quick principle in terms of mindset I want to rush through with you is some people have a kind of materialistic view. I guess to some extent it's human nature. I don't know if it's the competitiveness. I'm sure it goes back to, centuries ago. But we kind of have this mentality. If I have something, actually, sorry, the slide at the top is not showing it. It's meant to be have at the top. So if I have this, I can then do that, and then I'll be this type of person. So, for example, if I have that Ferrari, I can then, go around driving it and looking really good, and I'll be this sort of entrepreneur, I'll be this happy person. It's, looking at what you want to have, and then you can do something, and then you'll be something. And this is flipping that completely on its head and saying it's far more powerful. It's a far more powerful mentality to start from who you want to be. And it goes back, there's so many different philosophies behind this, but start with, it's all about having that moral compass or your personal constitution you want to live your life by. If you live in and be that person today, you're more likely to see the the rewards of that later on, really. So be the person you want to be now, and then you'll be able to do what you want to do, and then you'll have whatever rewards come along with that, really. So I don't want to dwell on that, but hopefully you can relate to that to some extent. So you've got to be before you can do. Zig Ziglar's got some really famous sort of sayings over the years, and that's a really powerful one. Okay, and again, I think this is the final mindset I've got today, and it's about how, as a business owner, we've got ourselves. We've got our team in some cases. Even if you're working for yourself, you might be interacting with others like subcontractors or people you're outsourcing to. But generally, these are the four elements of a business. You've got the owner, the team or the staff, you've got the customers, and you've got the business itself. So Richard Branson is a strong believer in if you look after your team first, they look after your customers, and that will ultimately look after your business. So we've got a slight modification on that, and I've had a few conversations with people recently, and it's not about being selfish. It's not about, not having any morals and not caring about other people, but ultimately you do have to care about yourself first. It all comes from you. If you don't look after number one, you're not really going to be in a position or frame of mind to look after your team. So with all this going on, just without being selfish, take a step back from yourself, from your business, and who is the most important person in that business is generally the owners for owner-managed businesses. So look after yourself first, then you'll be in a position to help your team as much as possible. Look after your team, which ultimately helps your customers, and it's going to help your business, and it's this cycle, really. Yeah. And as I said, you've got to look after yourself. So your well-being at the moment is critical. I know there's all this stuff recently about I don't know how to explain it, but all the mental sort of health, really, and looking after yourself. There's meditation, there's balancing life in terms of your exercise, and it's all about that balance, really. And I think in these sort of times it's really easy just to get a bit narrow-minded and get too focused on the challenges in front of you, and you just want to really try and resolve them. But take a step back, look after yourself and look after your family, and you can apply this to your business in terms of your finances. If you can sort out your personal finances and streamline your personal budgets where you're standing as ultimately as a family man, or sorry, or as a family person, in terms of your husband or your wife and your kids. You've got to look after yourself first. You've got to put on your own oxygen mask, as they say on a plane, before you can put on anybody else's or help anybody else. So there's a few things you can look at personally in terms of your own finances. And then you can help your team. So, how are you going to work under these new circumstances if you are in the fortunate position that you can work? I'm completely aware that many businesses have to stop completely, that there's no way of them working. But if, however, you are more office-based or service-based in terms, and it's more of, say, a tech-driven business where you can work from home on a computer through the internet, then how are you going to support your team with everything that's going on? Or even if that's not the case, even if you're employees are going to be furloughed, or you've got subcontractors, people you outsource to, or who are kind of on hold themselves, what support are you giving them? How are you going to support them? Because ultimately, if you can get them through this, then you can get through this as a business once it all finishes eventually, hopefully. And make it very clear what support you've got there for your team members. And it's a good idea to have some form of policy in place, if they are struggling, how you can help them through all of this. So finally, we've got your clients. So you might have seen yourself, you're getting lots of emails with people saying, this is our COVID-19 policy. We're still open, we're still able to service you, or we've got reduced hours, we've got a special telephone number. So just have a little bit of a think about what your policy is during all of this, and communicate where possible with your customers. Even if your business is completely frozen, it's on hold, and there's nothing you can do for the next few weeks or even months, communication's still a big one, because you want this relationship, once this is all finished, with your clients and your customers. So just try and communicate as much as possible. And it's not a bad idea to come up with a formal policy for COVID-19, with all of this going on, and send it to your customers or your clients. Does it affect your terms of trade? Again, if you are trading in any capacity, does it affect the way that you trade with your customers and your clients? And communicate that, or update your terms and your contracts around that. And also, are you changing with the cash flow management or your terms of trade? Are you changing the way you're taking payments, or the way you work with your customers or your existing or your new clients with all this going on? Again, I completely appreciate many businesses have completely frozen at the moment, so it's not relevant, but it's relevant for everybody, but it's something to think about if you are still working in some capacity with your customers. So exactly the same thing with your suppliers. Can you contact your suppliers to... Some of this is common sense, it's not rocket science, but I'm trying to put it all in one place for you. And we have got a resource at the end, which I think is going to be really useful. It's a really detailed checklist. But it's things that you should really be doing. Are you reaching out to your suppliers? Is there anything you can do in terms of payment terms? Because everybody's going through the same challenges at the moment. We're all in the same boat together. So some of them might have no choice but to be a bit more understanding. They're probably expecting it. So I would, look at your list of suppliers, your key suppliers, and is there anything you can do in terms of the policy for your purchasing? If you're a larger business, you might have the way you purchase things, that you have a set policy. Even if you're a smaller one to a lesser extent, just review how you make those decisions at the moment. Have you got any stock that you've not paid for and it can be returned? And also just review the contracts you have in place with your suppliers to make sure they are up to date, and if there's anything specifically for these sort of situations. So we did plan on doing a seminar for clients and anybody else in the Gloucestershire area, physically in our office, all about how you can improve the cash flow in your business. Because we all know that cash is king. You could be a very profitable business, but you could still go out of business. Even in the best of times, places like Groupon, some of the biggest companies in the world, it was once upon a time the fastest internet startup in history, and Google tried to buy it for $6 billion and they refused, has really, really struggled for cash flow. I'm not sure how it's doing at the moment, but it was making a huge profit on paper, but it really struggled for cash. So I'm just going to briefly, I don't want to go make it too techy or go into too much detail, so don't worry about that. This is meant to be practical. But I just want to talk about the concept of the cash conversion cycle. So if you're a trade business or a wholesaler, if you're in a business where you've got to buy some form of stock and then you convert it into an item or you sell it on to a customer, then you eventually receive payment, that whole process is known as your cash conversion cycle. So day zero, so you might make an order from a supplier and you say, I'd like to buy whatever it is. Let's pretend you buy and sell something. I don't know, your sports shop and you're buying wholesale whey protein or some form of protein products. So you buy some stock and then under the payment terms, you pay for that stock 45 days later, so a month and a half. And then day 60, so it might take, say, a couple of weeks for you to turn your stock around. You sell it to the customer, whether it's online or retail. And if you're selling it, if it's business to business and it's on payment terms, it might take, let's say, another 60 days to actually physically receive that money from your customer, from your client. So the whole process in terms of you ordering the stock and you paying and then selling it to your customer and receiving the money in your bank is 120 days. So if we look at the cash flow, the cash conversion cycle from your perspective, it's taken 60 days to actually, it's day 60 that you sell the stock to your customer, and it's another 60 days that you receive payments. That's 120 days. So you've got 60 and 60, but you're getting credit of 45 days in your favour. So in this example, your cash conversion cycle is 75 days. So again, I don't want to dwell on it in too much detail, but if we think of a business that has turnover of £365,000 a year, so it's a really nice number I've picked on purpose just to illustrate these numbers, then that would be £1,000 per day in terms of the cash flow. Okay, 1 day's worth of sales would be £1,000 because it's £365,000 for the year. So your cash conversion cycle in terms of monetary terms for that business would be £75,000. Okay, if you can reduce your cash cycle by 25 days, that's going to free up cash of £25,000. Okay, so I don't want to dwell on the numbers too much, but the point I'm trying to make is if you can increase your payment terms with suppliers and decrease how quickly you get paid, again, for a lot of businesses, it's completely stopped at the moment. I fully appreciate that. But it's a good opportunity to think about your business and your cash conversion cycle, where you burn in the cash. So if you can apply that to your business in some way, that's fantastic. Later in the year, we will be doing a bit more in this area just to sort of talk about the difference between cash and profit. And that's what this next slide talks about in a bit more detail, is the difference between cash and profit. So the Business 101 cycle is all about how you make the money in your business work for you. So it's all about when the money comes into your business, whether it's personal money you've introduced in terms of the assets into the business, or it's physical assets, or it's a loan, whatever that income is going into the business to fund your business at the beginning, you then want to turn it into profit, eventually turn it into cash. And that's when, the owners can reap the rewards of that cash. But we all know cash is king. As I mentioned, there's some very profitable businesses that struggle with cash flow. So there's little things you can do in this sort of cycle just to, reduce that burden. In terms of profit, the things you can do, and we'll talk about this in a second, you can sell more. That will increase your profit. If you just sell more often, more frequent, you can increase your margins. So, if your margin's currently at, let's say, 25% and you can get it to 30%, that's going to increase your profit. And you can look at things like your expenses, your overheads, just keeping, I think annually, just keeping on top of those sort of things can definitely make the difference to see where you're potentially draining profit and draining cash. And in terms of increasing your cash, we've just touched upon that already. If you can collect money a bit sooner, take deposits from customers where possible, pay suppliers longer or get better terms, reduce refinance or have lower interest with your loans, or better credit terms with suppliers, if you can spread tax payments. All these things are ultimately going to help with your business. So this is not, I'm sure a lot of you are not thinking about this right now, but these are things that are going to help you if you survive. It can help you right now, certainly, because there's things you can go away and do. And as I mentioned, the checklist will give you a really detailed blueprint to how you can go away and actually make a difference to your business right now. But a lot of this is long term, how you can make a difference to your business and just make it more viable and give it stronger foundation, make it a little bit more storm proof in the future. And finally, in terms of the owners, we need to take money out of the business. That's the whole point, I guess, for most of us. And there's things you can do to, if you can take less money out of the business, that's clearly going to help the business in terms of its cash flow. So you can look at your personal commitments in terms of loans, mortgages, how much you need to take out. If you can reduce that, then it won't drain the business so much from a resource perspective. Okay, so I'm going to whiz through this a bit quickly, but there's 7 ways you can grow your business. You can increase client retention rate. So that's repeat customers. Do the customers stay with you annually, year on year? In our business in accounting, we're quite lucky, I guess, in that we build longer term relationships with clients, and it's something people need on a monthly, a quarterly, and an annual basis. So we've got quite a good model from that perspective. Some businesses is more challenging, or the time when the customer comes back might be more spread out. It could be, for example, a plumber who's installing a new boiler. That person might not need another boiler for 10 years time. You might potentially get the service in between, but it's whatever you can do to increase your client retention rate to ensure that they come back to you. Some of this is a bit more self-explanatory. How can you get more leads into your business with different forms of marketing? So at the moment, a lot of us have got time in our hands. So we can, look at maybe online marketing, social media, working on our website, getting any materials updated, that sort of thing. How can you convert more prospects into actual clients? That's your conversion rate. So for example, if you had 10 inquiries, and 2 of them turned into actual paying customers, your conversion rate would be 20%. How can you get that to 30%, which is only 1 extra customer out of 10, but that's a 50% increase in your new customers. So that's another way of growing your business. And also, how can you increase the average transaction value or the average spend of your customers? So it's have you got more products and services you can offer to your customers? Can you get them to buy more often? And finally, can you reduce your cost of sales, which is your margin? So if you're buying a product and you sell it on, is there a cheaper supplier? Can you buy it from a different country? Can you reduce the carriage costs or any of those sort of directly related expenses? And can you reduce your overheads, as I mentioned in the previous slide? Okay, so in terms of finance, this is what is probably relevant for a lot of people at the moment. Speak to your bank if you haven't already, just see if there's anything they can do for you. An overdraft is an obvious thing to look at if you've not got one. Or can you increase your overdraft? Because it's designed to be short term. Loans are designed to be longer term, so that's definitely something that could help in some way. Can you amend your credit terms? So if you've got not necessarily with the bank, but with your key suppliers, can you increase your credit terms so you can pay them longer? Can you review any existing finance agreements you have? Can you spread them over a longer term? Can you potentially look to go interest only with any loans you might have? Can you get a repayment holiday? If you've got assets in your business, so if, for example, let me just here we are. Just thought I'd show off my pen writing skills, my drawing skills. So if you've got any assets in your business, if you've got equipment, computer equipment, plant machinery, vans, that sort of stuff, and it's not financed, there are specific companies out there that provide asset finance. So they basically give you finance to buy back your own equipment, if that makes sense. So that's another option that not everybody is aware of. And there's certain short-term loans that you can do which are high interest rates, but they're designed to get you through a sticky patch. So I forgot what it's called now. iWalker, I think, are one of the providers. I guess it's a bit like your Wonga for businesses. They don't get the best publicity because it might be the equivalent of 30-40% APR per annum, but it's designed to be short term. It could be that extra 10k for the next month or the next 6 weeks. So just look at all your options, and also credit cards at the bottom. It's a bit of a dry subject. It's not the most interesting, but I thought I'd mention it. Just have a look at the insurances you've got in place at the moment. As I said, some of us got a bit more downtime. Just make sure that you're covered. For example, if you've got an office and the office is vacant, is the insurance still valid? If you're unsure, speak to your insurance provider. See if there's anything you need to change to your contract or your insurance because you're no longer working in that office. And just keep it up to date. Just make sure that it's as up to date as it can be, and if there's any special clauses for what's going on at the moment. I imagine a lot of insurances don't have clauses to cover what's happening in the world at the moment because it's so extreme and so unpredicted, but it's just something worth noting. Okay, so this is getting into the more topical things that a lot of people are interested in, and we have had conversations with our clients a number of times around all these sort of areas. That the main thing that we keep on getting asked about, quite naturally, we're all in the same boat, is the job retention scheme, which I'll talk about. But I just thought I'd recap what's available at the moment in terms of the main help we're getting from the government, and I've put a note down there saying that this can change daily. Today is the 26th, it's 25 to 3 as I'm recording this, and we are waiting on the Chancellor to announce how he's going to help self-employed people, and I will talk about that in a bit more detail in a second. So if you're watching this and it's already been announced, we are going to do a separate email or separate video just to discuss that, because that is quite a big one that everybody's waiting on. So just a reminder, at the moment, you can defer your VAT payments. I think it's if the VAT was due from the 23rd of March up until the 30th of June. So it's not the VAT period, it's the VAT payment. So if the VAT payment was due between those dates, you can defer the payment. So that is a form of finance. It's quite a generous one, really. I think it's probably underreported. It's quite a big one for some people. For some businesses, that's several thousands of pounds, and you can delay that until the end of the current tax year, which is the 5th of April 2021. So we've got pretty much a year to delay your VAT payment. Ultimately, it still needs to be paid. A practical note, which we've learned in the last couple of days, is cancel your direct debit. If you don't want to pay your VAT because you need to use the cash elsewhere, cancel your direct debit, because it might still be taken out and it might be very difficult to get that money back once you've paid them. So they've increased the, what you can get for working tax credits and universal credit. To be honest, it's quite a complicated system. I don't think it's easy to go through that process, but until we get the latest measures in terms of helping self-employed people, that was really the only thing available to people, is to go through the tax credit system to see what sort of help they can get. So it's just worth noting that it's still available to people, and they're updating it so it includes, effectively, I think it's around £97 a week for self-employed people to claim the equivalent of SSP through the tax credit system. The job retention scheme is probably what 80% of my phone calls are about at the moment, to be honest. If you're watching this, I might have already discussed it with you. To get straight to the bottom line, we are still waiting on all of the details. There's so many questions we have on this job retention scheme. What we do know is, if you're going to treat the workers as furloughed, then they cannot be working in your business. So you can't say to them, you're going to be furloughed because you can't work in the business at the moment because there's no work for you and you can't do your job. However, can you still answer the phone? Can you still just pop in and do this or do this odd 10%? That's not how it works. They need to not be working at all. I mean, how it's going to be policed, I don't know, but to protect yourselves, I can only obviously advise that you follow through with that, really, and you do treat them that they aren't helping in the business. Yep, so I hope that clarifies that area. The big question we have with the furloughed workers scheme is, do directors qualify? Do they count? we don't know. We haven't got that information yet. We've got some feedback from things like HMRC's Twitter account, where some agents have replied to people saying yes, directors should count because they're under PAYE. However, until we see the small print, we honestly don't know. We're guessing, because it's quite feasible for HMRC to say this excludes directors in certain types of limited companies. You know, say a close limited company where it's a smaller family-owned business most of the time. We are hoping that directors do qualify, and they are part of this. We have naturally been asked, can I increase my salary? We don't think that's what you should be doing under these circumstances, because there's going to be some strong anti-avoidance measures to make sure people don't abuse the scheme. At the same time, we're in survival mode. We advise you to do everything you can do legally to maximise any benefits or any scheme that's going to help you, but we don't want to do anything artificial to manipulate that, really. So we can, to be honest, we can do a webinar. Sorry about the dog if you can hear that in the background. I'm working from home, as I'm sure most people are at the moment. But we could literally do a separate video discussing it for an hour, the job retention scheme. So that's kind of the general outline of everything. And there are lots of ifs and buts which we are waiting for. And as soon as we know more, we've got the information, we will let you know. The coronavirus business interruption loan scheme. So it's designed so that the government wants to give all this extra cash injection into the business community in the country to help small businesses and larger businesses to get relatively cheap access to finance. And we've now been told it's interest-free for 12 months. However, the feedback I've got from someone who works at Capitalise, and Capitalise is it's not a lending platform, it's kind of like a money supermarket for small business finance. So we can actually, on the behalf of our clients, do a lot of the process for you, the application. For example, we can say this particular business is looking for a loan of X amount over 2 years, 3 years, or they're looking for an overdraft facility. And then we can gather and put a lot of the information together for you, and it essentially gives you a list of potential lenders. So our contact at Capitalise said that he's got 200 applications on his desk at the moment for people applying for all sorts of finance, but he said that the banks do not have all of the information on this scheme as of yet. So it is something we are waiting on. There is a list. We have shared the link previously on our Facebook page and some of our emails of the banks that are working within the scheme, but the feedback we're getting is that the banks would rather work with people they already have a relationship with. So your first point of call is your local bank manager, and hopefully they're a bit more clued up now with how the scheme's going to work. But we're also getting feedback on the criteria. Apparently there's a lot more hoops to jump through because of the nature of it being government backed than a normal loan. So that they're asking for quite a lot of information, things like how are you being affected by what's going on, more paperwork, more history, more personal information. It's definitely something I recommend looking at. Speak to your bank, but just give you that background, that context. We're not seeing the money pour in from these loans at the moment. And also we have the 12-month business rates holiday, which has just come in, which is fantastic. The one thing I've noticed missing from here is the government grants, which has been talked about previously. And as far as we understand, again, all of the small print's not out, but if you have a business premises that qualifies for small business rates relief, then you will be entitled to some form of grant, which looks to be £10,000 and upwards. But we're being told that you basically will be contacted by the local authority directly, and they'll let you know if you qualify for that. So which leads us to the biggie, really, and you might be watching this and we might have a bit more information, but as I'm doing this, recording this video, we do not know what the situation is, and unless the Chancellor is announcing it as I'm speaking. I just wanted to clarify what self-employed means, because there's a lot of people and clients and a lot of small businesses out there that rightly so are saying, where's the self-employed help? But I just want to clarify, there's a lot of people with a limited company that work for themselves, so they work for themselves, but they're not technically classed as self-employed. So if you're a builder, a subcontractor, a painter, a decorator, a hairdresser, you could be a solicitor, you could be a salesperson, a state, whatever you do, if you work for yourself, so technically you're still like self-employed, but you run it through a limited company, strictly speaking, you're not self-employed. Because the two main vehicles to work for yourself is either as a self-employed worker registered with HMRC or through a limited company. So we're hoping that they're going to include people with their own limited company in this self-employed discussion in that context. So we're hoping it's wider reaching, it's wider in terms of the meaning of self-employed in this context, if that makes sense. So at the moment, there's a very big danger of people with their own limited company who fall in between the cracks between the self-employed help and also the job retention scheme help. Because if, for example, and this is a worst case scenario, if when the full details come out about the job retention scheme here and directors are excluded, and also when the self-employed help comes out this evening and it doesn't include limited companies, it means actually you fall in between the two and there's nothing available, and that will affect hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. So my gut feeling is it's unlikely to be the case, because if you're going to lose out on the self-employed side of things, you should qualify for your 80% salary as a director. So I am guessing a little bit until we get the details, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention, what self-employed actually means. You know, it generally means you're not in a limited company. You could be in a limited company and have your own business. You work for yourself, but strictly speaking, legally, you're not self-employed. You're employed by your own limited company. So I hope that sort of clarifies a little bit. I'm more than happy to discuss it with anyone, but that's pretty much all of the information we have at the moment until they release the full details. And also on the job retention scheme, our understanding is you need to be paying your workers yourself, and then you claim it back under the scheme once it launches, and we're not expecting it actually to be official until the end of April. So there is a bit of a gap in terms of financing any wages and then receiving the money back from HMRC. Okay, so in terms of your next steps, you can do nothing, which in my opinion is not an option. You know, going back to the mindset, there's certain things in your control and there's certain things not in your control. You know, what is in your control is, I'm sure there's something you can do, what we've discussed about today, and I'm going to whiz you through our guides, our checklists, just to show you there's actually quite a lot of things you can be looking at as a business owner at the moment. And just remind you, you need to put on your own oxygen mask before you help anybody else. You need to do everything you can to help yourself, you know, whether it's personal finance, business finance, mentally making sure you're in the right place for you and your family to then help your team or make an impact on your own business. Make some form of plan, which is what we're going to help with today. And, you know, make sure you're speaking to the right people. There's a lot of fake news out there. There's so much information because this affects everybody, but lots of people sharing different stories, and we do tend to take it from the official sources. We would verify something 2 or 3 times, and I would not share anything with you until I see it from HMRC or from the official government source. You know, if I read something from a national newspaper, I won't take it as gospel. So just be careful that you're absorbing your information from the right places, and just focus, as I mentioned, on what you can do. Okay, so if you've got any questions, as I mentioned, more than happy to answer them. We do have a WhatsApp group, and you can, if it's general, it'd be great if you can put it in there, or even put it on our Facebook page, because it can help and answer other people's questions as well. If it's specific to your business, I'm more than happy to discuss it with you or one of the team. So just really the final thing is, and this is the most important thing from this video I've done today, is we've got a business continuity guide or checklist for you to physically do yourself. And it's quite hands-on, it's really detailed, but it's a massive value and a massive resource to you. And I'm going to give you the link. I'm not sure if I can click on it from here. I'm going to attach the link for you to access that directly, and it's in a Word format, so you can either print it off and fill it in, or do it on your computer. And also, if you do need to furlough any staff, we've got a sort of template agreement that you could use. I do need to stress, we're not employment law experts, we're not HR advisors, so use it as you see fit. It does seem to cover all the bases, but if you're unsure, you can speak to someone like ACAS or a specialist in that area. Okay, so if I turn off the pen, if you bear with me, I've got to try and turn off the pen. Okay, there we go. Okay, it won't let me click on the link. That's fine. So I'll go there in a minute, really. So that's just another little bit of a mindset thing for you. So I'm just going to share the checklist with you now, so hopefully you can see my screen okay. Okay, so I will share the link for this. It's on our business SharePoint, so you can access this online, download it to your computer. So this is something that we've put together which covers pretty much everything that's in your control. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of things you can do. You might feel that some of these are not relevant for you, but it's definitely worth looking at this line by line. So we are giving this to clients and non-clients completely free. It's I think it's going to be really useful. It's basically creating your action plan, how you're going to deal with this, who's responsible, when you're going to do it. As I mentioned, some of you have got quite a lot of time on your hands. So if we just whiz you through some of the things on here. So we're just touching on some of the stuff in the video. So your well-being, what are you doing for yourself? And if you've got a team, it's really important what you're putting in place to help your team to make sure they're managing okay. And between you're looking after your customers. What are you doing in terms of your family situation? Are you thinking ultimately health before wealth? So make sure you put your family first before anything else. Have you yet looked at your personal budget? Have you contacted your bank about, is it possible to get a mortgage holiday, a loan repayment holiday? Can you reduce your credit card payments? Can you cancel your Sky subscription? You probably don't want to cancel your Netflix because it's too good value, but where can you save money? Have you looked at your personal assets? Are you up to date? We don't want to really be thinking about this, but it's really important. Do you have a will? Is it up to date? Do you have the right insurances for you and your family? As I said, it's really detailed. This goes through everything, really. In terms of supporting your team, as I mentioned in the webinar, do you have a specific policy for your team, or also for your customers and your suppliers? Have you shared that with them? Are they aware on how they need to work at the moment if they are working from home? Things about communication, any changes to the roles within the team. As a business owner, I'm sure lots of us probably had some ambitious targets for the year. We all factor in growth to some extent, because if you're not growing, you're probably shrinking. You need to grow to some extent to stand still. It's probably a good opportunity to review your KPIs, your key performance indicators, and your budgets and your forecasts, for the next 12 months. So yeah, as you can see, it's quite detailed. There's a lot on here. Have you reviewed all the financial support that's available to you? I'm sure most of you have been keeping up to date with the news, but have you explored every single avenue? Have you called the council to make sure, to find out if you're entitled to a grant, or if there's anything you need to do? Although we expect them to contact you, that is in your control. You can pick up the phone and you can ask them. You can get on a waiting list, and you can try and bump yourself up the queue if that's possible. Have you thought about restructuring your business? Have you created scenario A, B, and C off the back of this? Are you expecting to keep all of your customers when you come through the other side? If not, what would you need to do to your team? If you've got a team of 4 people, 5 people, 10 people, what would that look like if you lost 25% of your business, 10% of your business, 40% of your business? Things about your customers, how you're going to work with your customers, how you're going to keep them updated, your terms of trade. So a lot of this we've kind of touched upon during the presentation itself. So So I mentioned the cash flow forecast, and I've already shared on a previous video done a week ago, I think it was last Wednesday, how you can create a very basic cash flow forecast on Excel, on a spreadsheet. And there's also some software that's available for free. So Fluidly is a free option, and there's some paid options out there as well. So yeah, so hopefully this is my big takeaway from the video, really, is to go away, do this checklist for yourself, because then you know you've done everything you possibly can for your business. We have literally thought about everything you can think about. This, if anything, is too much information, but if you've got the time on your hands, it probably take you anything between, if you whiz through it and you skip half of it, it might take you an hour. If you do it really detailed, it might take you half a day, but it'd probably be the best half day you've spent in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, so hopefully you do find that useful. And also on the link, which I'm going to share with you, is the furlough agreement if you need to use it with your employees. So yeah, I think that's it, guys. I'm not sure how long this has gone on for. Hopefully I've not blabbered too much. If you've got any questions at all, you're more than welcome to contact me directly, and I will share an update with the self-employed news as soon as it comes out. Cheers.